Hi, my name is Eliza Roberts, and I'm here with Team Swebo, and we're going to talk about, well, I'll give you a little introduction first. We're going to talk about some international agreements, specifically the Montreal and Kyoto protocols. Lindsay Schultz is going to do that for us. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about green trends, pressure for companies to be green, and implications for our clients. And then Mustafa and Lynn are going to talk about some federal regulations that everybody should be aware of. They're going to split up, and Lynn's going to talk about air and energy, and Mustafa's going to talk about water and waste. And then Brianna is going to talk about some federal incentives that may sort of benefit our clients, and then she's going to provide us with a conclusion. So now I'm going to pass it off to Lindsay, who's going to talk about the Montreal and Kyoto protocols.
Okay, I'm going to give you a brief background of two very important international agreements. Both of these agreements have led countries to think more about their impact on the environment. Okay, we're going to first start with the Montreal Protocol of 1987. This treaty was initially signed by 24 countries. Currently, in 2009, there's actually 196 countries that have ratified this agreement, which is a very high participation rate. The goal of the Montreal Protocol is designed to phase out ozone-depleting substances, and this majority is CFCs. This also led to the creation of the Multilateral Fund, and this really encourages developing countries to really agree to this protocol. And what it does is it basically provides resources to developing countries to invest in ozone-safe technologies. Also, data shows that full implementation should lead the ozone layer to return to pre-1980 levels by 2050. Okay, so we move on to the next protocol. This is the Kyoto Protocol of 1997. And the goal of this protocol is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 5% compared with 1990 levels by 2012. As of 2009, this was ratified by 184 countries, not including the U.S. And the U.S. is one of the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. The protocol regulates the following gases: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, are also known as HFCs, perfluorocarbons, PFCs, and sulfur hexafluoride. Now, the Kyoto Protocol is said to be a little less successful than the Montreal Protocol. And I'm just going to highlight a few of the success and failures, but as you can see, one of the biggest failures of this protocol is the lack of participation from the U.S., which we discussed as the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Also, data show that CO2 levels are actually increasing, which kind of questions the effectiveness of this protocol. It also has some successes as well. It definitely increased awareness about the risks of global warming, and also led businesses to really think about clean energy solutions, which Liza will talk more about in a few minutes. Just to highlight some of the Montreal Protocol's success and failures, this one has been deemed one of the most successful international agreements. And this is primarily due to the high degree of global participation, including it's also signed by the U.S. Also, data has shown that both atmospheric and stratospheric levels of the ozone harmful chemicals are actually decreasing. Now, Liza's going to talk to you a little bit about green trends in the industry.
Okay. So why are all of these companies all of a sudden deciding to be green? There's been a great deal of pressure over the past 10, 20 years from environmental groups and consumers, pressure on companies to be more green and consider their environmental footprint, their carbon footprint, their water footprint. Companies like Coca-Cola have depleted water tables in India. Walmart's been criticized for building these huge stores in fragile ecosystems, and McDonald's has been accused of deforestation of Brazilian rainforests. There's a picture I wanted to include here of Ronald McDonald hacking down a tree, but apparently it's not available on Google Images anymore, so I couldn't provide you with that. Oftentimes environmental groups will target companies like Coca-Cola and Walmart, the ones with the most widely recognized brand and high brand value, because they're easy targets, and because if you want to bring about some sort of change on some environmental issue, it's the easiest way to potentially do that within the industry. So how have companies responded to this? I'm going to use Walmart as an example here. Walmart has developed 3 overarching sustainability goals. One is to use 100% renewable energy. Second is to create zero waste. And the third is to create products that sustain people in the environment. Walmart has partnered with a whole host of environmental groups to try to develop a sustainability strategy that will both improve their image and increase their bottom line at the same time. And one of their more unique initiatives is the Sustainability Index that many of you have probably heard about. And the goal of a Sustainability Index is to increase transparency among consumers and create a green rating system so that every time you look at a product, you can see how green it is or how green it isn't. Walmart has begun this process. They've sent out surveys to over 100,000 of its suppliers, and they're trying to sort of gather all of this information. And it's still in the beginning stages. They're also trying to create a consortium to help regulate and oversee this index so that it's not seen as just a Walmart initiative, even though some would say it is, and that other companies can adopt it and begin to use it for their products as well. So then what are the implications for our clients? Well, one is that there's pressure on suppliers, and suppliers may begin to see this as sort of a competitive advantage to be green. As Walmart puts more pressure on suppliers, they may recognize that it's not just the Walmarts that want them to do this, but other companies want them to adopt these practices as well. And the consumer demands and pressure on suppliers and desire and need for companies to be more green encourage them to look for tools to help enable them to do so. Maybe it's air conditioning units that will decrease their costs and help them to be more green, or other tools or things that our clients can provide. And another interesting thing that I just wanted to talk about quickly, Lauren was talking about the US being reactionary, and I think the companies here are a really good example of how companies are reactionary and just sort of reacting to a bunch of people coming at them and saying, you need to be more green, you need to be more green, and so that's why they're sort of providing these solutions. And most of them are not being proactive, although this example of Walmart may be more of that. So now I'm going to pass it on to Mustafa, who's going to talk about some federal regulations.
Thank you, Liza. So today we're going to talk about water regulations, and specifically two acts. And the first one is going to be the Clean Water Act, which was enacted in 1948 and was known as the Federal Water Pollution Act. Now, through time, this act went through some changes. In the 1970s, there were some amendments, and in 1977, it became known as the Clean Water Act, the name that it still has today. So what does the act do? The act gave the EPA the power to regulate water quality standards. And one of the ways it achieves this is by requiring emitters of pollution to apply and receive permits before they can discard their pollution into navigable waterways. Another way it achieves this is by setting clean water standards. And it monitors clean water standards by establishing a network of stations that monitor concentrations of pollution. And it does this through ambient, what they call ambient monitoring. If a body of water is not within control, then it's put on a course of corrective action. And this is achieved by setting maximum, total maximum daily loads. And once it is within control, anti-gradation policies are put into place to make sure that the water quality does not regress. So the Clean Water Act focuses on surface water, but we